So let's talk a little bit about change management again as it relates to Remedy. So what are we trying to do in change management, right? I mean, it's simple to say what it is. It's to be able to implement changes in a very efficient manner without causing additional problems, i.e., let's not have any type of negative impact on the customers. And the real key is you have to have a consistency of how you do change management. It can't be 13 different versions of how you provision a server, or else you're not going to get the real benefit out of it. So really, if you look at it as in kind of three broad strokes out there, first thing you've got to do when that request for change gets initiated is you've got to do the proper planning. You've got to look at the changes with respect to other changes and prioritize the importance and the timing of that change. You need to make sure that you gather enough information so that people can do an impact and risk analysis, and I'm going to show you some ways that you can even kind of help make that a little bit more automated process as you go through there. And then once you've done that, you understand the risk, the impact. If it looks like something that's going to go forward, let's figure out, well, what are the tasks that have to be done to make this change effective, and are there any particular sequences or dependencies that those tasks would have in implementing that request for change. So once you've done that, then you've got to think about the scheduling of the change, because that actually is, to me, is almost part of the risk analysis as well, but it is a true different function. So do we have the necessary resources on the dates that we're talking about doing this change to accomplish those tasks that we defined during the planning phase? So let's make sure that they're there. Let's make sure that we leverage looking at our change calendar as well as some automation within the Remedy suite of using collision detection to understand if this change that we're looking at could possibly have any impact to other CIs or other changes that have to be out there. And I'll show you some of that when we actually get into the demos. And then, of course, let's make sure that the approvals are in line based on the type of change it is. Oftentimes, those approvals will be predetermined in the way you've set up how approvals are always done, or it may be for this particular change, you've manually configured what the approval process is. Both, of course, are supported as you go through and you do that. And then finally, once we do that, it gets approved, we need to go in and develop and test the change depending on the complexity of it. We need to, then deploy the packages. We need to verify that the changes were correct. And we need to then monitor those changes for some period of time to make sure there's not a downstream effect of what's going on there. So that's at a high level kind of what I think are the three buckets. If you want to look at it another way, this is kind of the way BMC defines it. And again, all of the change management within the Remedy suite is based on the ITIL good practices. But basically, if you're thinking about it, you're initiating your change up here where you're gathering the various information. You're then reviewing and authorizing it after you've done your risk and impact analysis. It should go before your CAB, whether that's a weekly meeting or biweekly or whatever, to get the approvals. You're certainly going to involve your CMDB, which is just absolutely critical in order to do change management, because we have to understand the CIs that are being affected and the relationships of CIs to other services that are out there. Looking at the planning and scheduling, as we talked about on the prior slide, and probably even perhaps another approval process at that point before we get ready to do it. Then making sure that we assign tasks and the steps that have to done that to the appropriate individuals in the appropriate sequence. And there could theoretically be another approval process after some set of the tasks are even done. Again, it depends on how you've defined your change management process. Obviously, if you are doing an infrastructure change, you've got to make sure at this point that your CMDB gets updated here based on that infrastructure same. And then ultimately, again, you're going to review and verify that this did correct whatever issue you were trying to correct, that things are working appropriately, and you've kind of gone full cycle there. So in effect, that's kind of what we're doing. So let's go over and actually take a look at the product now. So, most of you, I'm sure, are already Remedy users, or you probably wouldn't be at this. So, I skipped the home page and went right into the Change Management Console. This is version 8.1, by the way, it's kind of had this similar look and feel since 7604, although when I actually open up the change request itself, you may see a few things that look a little bit different here. But again, typical remedy console, be it incident change or whatever, you can change the way it's displayed and all. Here's a list of the changes that we have out here. You have the ability to get somewhat of an overview of exactly where, for example, this change request is. And even without opening the ticket, if I wanted to see the various tasks that were associated with that particular change request and what the current status of that particular task was, I could see that right from my console if I wanted to. Of course, I can search for changes. I could create a new change, which I'm going to do for you in a minute. I could look at my change calendar. We'll actually do that when we go in and create a new change. As many of you possibly know, there was a major improvement in version 8.1. There's a completely new change calendar that has more of an Outlook layout, if you would, certainly a vast improvement over what was over there. And, then obviously within change, you may have some key performance indicators that you're tracking. So let's go in and look at this particular change request I have highlighted here just to get an idea of what the layout of the system is out there. And of course, when I'm showing you this, I'm kind of showing you the way the system is configured out of the box. I mentioned that that change management as well as the other modules within Remedy are all really based on the ITIL best practices. And if you really want to see how it works out of the box, we do provide a overview of the change management steps, where the dependency areas are, what's happening in each one of these. Any one of these can be drilled down to get a further detail of what's happening at that stage of the particular request. You can even go in and talk about the different players within doing change management and even getting into, seeing the forms, looking up the glossary. So again, a great consistent way of showing you how it's going to work, a great training vehicle as you bring on new folks. And the nice thing about the system is if your particular environment requires an extra little step to be put in because of some particular requirements that you have, you can modify this form to reflect what changes that you felt you needed to make within there. So again, this is the out-of-the-box change request for change form. Kind of traverse around here a little bit, and then we'll actually go create one. So this is a change request that is being done by who I'm logged in as, which is Alan here. You'll notice that this one is related to employee services. One of the changes made in 8.0 and 8.1 is while I'm looking here, I can immediately go out and explore the CIs, in this case, show me all the infrastructure that supports the employee services out there that's available for me. So if I were to click on that, for example, it would bring up the employee services from the CMDB, reflect out to me, depending on how I've configured it at the top level there, and I'll actually go and expand this one out and see if we can't show you even a little bit more detail there. I'll expand it out, and it'll show the servers that we have out there that are supporting the databases that are supporting this particular application. So as a change coordinator, I could very easily see if this change were, for example, to take down one of these boxes to apply a patch, I can get a sense of, is this a standalone environment, or are there some redundancies? What applications are dependent upon these? So having this type of information available to your change requester becomes a very critical part of what you're doing. And now we give you that ability to launch that right from the screen there. The other new thing that they added in 8.1 was something called a service context. So I can take that CI that was identified there, and I can very quickly come in and show the other related CIs. Are there any open incidents or change requests that are already involving that particular CI? And again, just a more way for that staff technician to be able to drill down right from within the form that they're working in, just a little bit more convenient way of doing that one. Here's the summary of what's going on, the class and the change reason. Then these are definable, fix, repair, maintenance windows, or whatever. target date for this particular change to be implemented, and then how this particular change is being assigned an urgency and a priority. And then, of course, what's the risk level that's being assigned to this? And this is a very interesting area. I talked about that on both of the other slides. If you are using a template, and in this case we didn't, so this was a manual change request that was filled out, so the technicians or the cab itself kind of come in and classify what they think the impact urgency is for this, and then have to assign a risk level to it. Well, there's always risk, no pun intended there, of we humans trying to do the risk levels, because what may seem risky to me may not seem risky to someone else. So one of the tools that Remedy Change Management does provide you is the ability to go out and build a series of questions around risk, and then depending on how those questions are answered, it will come down and then assign a risk level for you. So it takes a little bit of the individuality out of that, and you can actually then, the cab, when they get ready to review this to see if they want to approve it, you can include the actual risk report. What were the questions asked? What were the answers? What kind of weighting was placed on that? And thus, that's how we came up in this case with that aggregate risk value of 5 there. So that's a very, very useful tool. That's not brand new. That's been around for some time in Remedy Change Management, but not everybody is aware of that one. Obviously, the different stages of a change, draft and planning, then request for authorization, then ready to implement, and so forth. Work log, like in any of your Remedy consoles, where I'm recording my notes, I'm recording any outbound emails that I send, or all show up here in my work log in effect here. How is this change being categorized from both your operational and or product categorizations? And anybody familiar with Remedy is familiar with these, so that's obviously something that gets leveraged there. And for this particular change request, what are the things that have to be done? So here are a couple of things that have to be done, and you'll see that they are sequenced. So task number 1 needs to be completed before task number 2 is going to go out there. And again, this has been a function within Remedy Change Management forever. They can be done sequentially, parallel, or any combination thereof. I.e., I can have 3 sequence 1 tasks and then have a sequence 2 and 3 come after that. And of course, I have the ability here to add tasks just by manually creating those tasks. As you can see, I've got an ad hoc, which would just bring up a blank task form, and I would create it. Or I can go out and take advantage of predefined things that we know as an entity we do over and over. So I've got task templates, which are single function items like back up the system, or I may have group templates, which involve then 3 or 4 underlying dependency tasks underneath it. Again, that's been around in Remedy for some time, but that's where that is, again, shown right on this form for you. And then, of course, all important is your relationship tab, right? How does a change request occur? Well, it may very well just be somebody requested, and a person goes in, a staff member goes in, and then creates the request for change, much as you're seeing here. But you can see also that it could be that problem management instigated this change request because someone investigating recurring incidents found a known error and knows that in order to correct that known error, an infrastructure change has to take place. So within the problem management module, you would have actually kicked off this change request, and as you can see, that's exactly what happened here. The known error, number 603, kicked off this actual change request. And then, as importantly, you would want to identify, as we talked about here, this is the employee services application, which is a configuration item. So you would want to see that. And now we're actually doing a repair. So when we went and looked at Explore the CI, you noticed there were a number of servers in support of this. And the one that we determined that we were needing to do the work on was this particular configuration item, a Dell server called Maybach. So all of that is captured in here as far as what we're going to do. And then, of course, you get into your when are we going to schedule to do this, because that becomes all important in looking at your planning and so forth. And in order to do that is where you're going to certainly want to view this new forward schedule of changes that you have. Again, this is new to 8.1.